Hello and welcome to this episode of the Book Experience. I'll be talking about the book Vera. It's written by Elizabeth von Arnim and it was inspired by Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. And if you look at Rebecca, it was in turn inspired by Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. So I think to talk about this book, it's important to talk through that sequence once, right? Just to understand where this book came from and what's the inherent psychology. So, Jane Eyre is a classic, and many of you might have read it. And the book had Jane Eyre as the protagonist. She's a young, naive girl. She's a governess to Mr. Rochester's niece, and then eventually she comes to understand that Mr. Rochester had a wife who he had locked up, and this wife had was called Bertha Mason, and she had feelings for Mr. Rochester which couldn't fructify. They were about to get married, but when Jane comes to know about uh, Mr. Rochester's first wife, she sort of steps away from the wedding, and then eventually a lot of events unfold from there. The point was that the entire story was written from Jane's perspective, right? And the other woman, Bertha, nobody talked about her, and that's where Rebecca was born. So Rebecca also has the same premise. So it is about a man who has gotten married for the second time to a young naive woman, and this new wife comes to live in his estate, and she's haunted by the virtual presence of the first wife, who is Rebecca, right? And so Vera builds upon on that same premise. So it's again, it's an older man in his late 40s, probably 50s as well, getting married to a girl barely out of her 20s. mm, and then what comes of it. And I mean, as a comparison with Jane Eyre or Rebecca, this is a very small story. When I say small story, it's lengthwise, it's not very long. Uh, in fact, the time it takes for uh, Lucy, who is the protagonist here, right? So Vera is again, she was the first wife, who died under mysterious circumstances. But Lucy, who is the heroine of this book, so to say, she gets to discover her husband um, in a spate of possibly a day and a few days, through a week or so. She is basically, I'd say, shocked into this revelation about her husband, who her husband really is. He's not a how would I say, he's not a dangerous man, but he there are quirks to his character, right, which to someone as naive as Lucy would come as a huge shock, right? Now, what I found about Vera is that it has a brilliant humorous touch, very dry humor, witty humor, at times dark, full of insight, and which has got me very interested in this authoress, right, Elizabeth von Arnim. I've not read any of her books before, and I could see that her entire collection is available on Kindle, and I'll try to get hold of that because I really loved her way of writing. And so I think that's the difference that Vera has with the books that it was inspired by. So Jane Eyre is very heavy. Rebecca is fairly heavy as well, and Rebecca has this very well renowned film by Alfred Hitchcock as well. So there are dark undertones. I mean, this book also has dark undertones, but the humor in it is what sets it apart, right? Doesn't really add much hope for Lucy, but it makes the journey rather enjoyable for the reader. So very distinctive style of the authoress, and I enjoyed this book. I had, again, I mean, this was a book which I just got to see while browsing. I got it. I bought it on Kindle because, again, I mean, this was one of the books which I had to read, and I had to read it now. So I got this, and it was a. I started, and I actually had to finish it within a day or two. It was that good. But then again, like I said, I mean, if you are not into classics, or really into stories that are not so much about the flow of the story and more about the characterization, this may not be your cup of tea. But if you do like good literature, great language, a lot of insight to the writing, right? I found it very distinctive writing. So that's about it. I think, do let me know how you like it. If you want me to review books, you can drop in your recommendations as well. I typically have a type. I don't really read a lot of Indian authors. I rarely read uh, recent books, right? So I have a type, but do drop in your recommendations, and I might actually think of picking one up of that recommendation and doing the next book experience. Till then, have a good day, and bye.